Hey guys, I was asked again, how do you do that? And this time it was about a breakthrough and how I could just feel it in my bones that something was right around the corner. So, how do you do that? How do you feel a breakthrough? How do you connect with that inner self and that feeling? I mentioned I am right on the edge of a breakthrough. I can feel it. I just know it's meant for me. And it's right there. And it's so close. And then she asked me, how do you do that? How can you feel a breakthrough is right around the corner? Truthfully, I think so much of it, of being able to be so in tune, I really do think it's a spiritual gifting. And it's not one that I even necessarily knew that I possessed until really just a few years back. And I really think that it came into full force when I finally was willing to surrender to a higher plan. I had my moment where I was just begging for answers to this question of is this really all life is meant for? Are we really just meant to wake, eat, work, sleep, repeat? And the more that I demanded an answer, the more that I realized that it was going to take my own inner workings, even just to be able to create space for this universal download that I was asking for, which leads me to believe that this spiritual gifting, that it's actually available to all of us. Well, I would say those that are willing to do the work. So how did I do that? First and foremost, I got curious. And we have talked about the the power of curiosity in a lot of other episodes. But for me, it really was the first step to just allowing my brain and my body to believe that maybe there was something else. Maybe if I could ask the question long enough, hard enough, and then be diligent about actually searching for an answer, maybe, just maybe, I would find it. And I did. But again, how, right? Everybody wants to know the how. How do you become universally and spiritually connected to your intuition and connected at that soul level? Start with time with yourself. I journaled almost every day for a year and a half while asking that question. So for you, I'm asking you, do you currently create any time for yourself in the day where you are just in silence? No music, no podcasts, no distractions, no responsibilities, nothing other than just designated time in your day to just hear yourself think, your true self think. Because most of the time, our brains are running through the to do list, or what we're going to have for dinner, or where our next vacation should be, or how the heck you're going to get through another day of work. Rarely do I hear that people have a common practice of actually giving space for that inner dialogue around just checking in with what we know to be true about ourselves. Like, do you like the life you're living? Ask yourself that. Really, do you like your life? Do you like the person that you're showing up as in your life? Does your heart deeply desire other things? And what parts of your life light you up? Or how did you feel at your high point of the day? Or how did you feel at your low point of the day? And I say this from the stage all the time because it's so powerful and it's rooted in such truth. I share this, that the volume of the noise around us is so loud that we can barely even hear ourselves think. And that it's time to start turning the volume down on the noise and start turning it up on our true inner selves and what that is trying to communicate to us. Because when we lean into ways of turning up the volume on our true selves, like journaling or taking a walk without technology or sitting in silence or meditating or like however you can connect to yourself, that's how we're able to turn the volume up on those intuitive nudges and those breakthroughs. Part of my practice of turning up the volume just on my inner self, I prayed a lot. And sometimes I even wrote down my prayers like as my journal entry for the day. The more space that I created to know myself, the more I started understanding pieces of me that were creating on purpose, with purpose, and like the deep desire to act out and live in that innate, deeply divine purpose. Okay. The more that I learned about myself, like the closer I got to my maker. I say that one all the time because it's true. The closer and like this beautiful transfusion of Holy Spirit becoming my best friend. And like, does this mean that I can quote Bible verses to you off the top of my head? Nope, it sure doesn't. And if we're speaking truth here, like I actually don't appreciate when someone decides to preach at me with the word. And so definitely like not today. I don't plan on being that person either. I believe that my fruits will show the word in action and in the living, breathing flesh. And honestly, I think we need a whole lot more of that, like not just Bible verses being slung around. So, like, side note, when I say that Holy Spirit became my best friend, what I just mean for me is that I could often feel the joyful and like abundant present of just more around me. So everything became enhanced. It was like feelings of love, of being cared for, of feeling supported, and even like of feeling challenged to show up more boldly and with more curiosity, like just so much more of everything. And this like interconnectedness. It's this innate feeling that, like, the best way I can describe it, it's this innate feeling that transcends the logical mind that we usually are allowing to lead our lives like all too often. One experience, because I like to give really tangible, practical, just advice or tools that you can do, right now while you're listening, or that you can do maybe within the next 24 hours. One experience that I had that really just showed me with my own eyes just how connected I had actually become was after I had written out a prayer. So I was prompted to do this after seeing a talk by Joby Martin where he suggested, okay, what if the answer is yes? And then he paused, okay, before explaining. He's like, what if the answer is yes? What if God meets you tomorrow morning and he says, hey, everything you prayed for yesterday, the answer is yes. And I let that concept just wash over me and I sat with it. And then for 40 minutes, I prayed as I wrote down every part of that prayer that I'd hope he'd give me his yes to. That was, to that point, that was the longest I had ever prayed. I didn't even know I could pray that long. Like it was nuts. I remember telling my husband about it because it was just such an experience. And also, it became this tangible reflection back of my own heart and of like the desires placed on my soul and of the things that I longed for the most. So I repeat, the more time I spent learning and becoming connected to myself, the more I became connected to those intuitive nudges that I would learn to follow and that would change my life. And that second part that I said, like, that's just as important as the first. So that when I'd actually follow and show up for the nudge or that intuitive suggestion, that when I did that, when I showed up with my yes, that obedient action to those nudges, that surrender to those intuitive knowings, every time I did that, I felt the immense amount of delight and hope and peace and love and joy. Every nudge that I followed worked out for my good and the good of so many others. And that then only gave me more courage and confidence to follow the next nudge. And that, my friend, is how we've gotten here together even today on this podcast. Like, I was in a season of yes and of alignment to purpose when it was suggested that I start a podcast. And so I did. I hadn't even listened to podcasts before I started my own. And this podcast, we're celebrating a year this week, okay? This podcast has blessed me in so many ways. I have met new people. I've learned so much. I've had conversations that shifted my perspective. I've had others reach out and share how it's also shifted them too in positive ways. Like, this podcast has, and especially, yeah, just showing up here in my first year and having 70 episodes, like, it's showing me living proof that I keep my promises to myself and the type of character qualities that I want to like continue to display. So again, it's this living, breathing example of what it looks like to, number one, create space to hear yourself and those intuitive like nudges, right? And then number two, what happens when you start actually trusting those nudges enough that you take aligned action? And those two things right there, that's our unjuggle summary of the day. So whatever breakthrough you're looking for, start by creating just even 5 to 15 minutes a day for yourself to just sit in self-reflection. A while back, actually, I would put a reflection question of the day onto my Instagram stories. And so now they're accessible just as one of those Instagram story highlights right at the top of the page for now. So go check them out. Like, if you're looking just for some guidance on what are some of the self-reflection questions I could ask myself that would create movement, forward movement in my life, those are out there. And then once you start doing that, if you'd like some additional support while uncovering those deeper parts of you and like identifying that innate purpose, just complete the inquiry form in the show notes. I'm working with several clients right now in custom coaching programs where we're helping them reconnect with themselves so that they can actually tap into and start walking into that upgraded 2.0 version of themselves. So if you're ready for that, then let's connect. And as always, again, being here with you, this has been such a blessing. I can't believe it's been a year. That's nuts. So thank you for listening. Like, you make it possible. The feedback that I've heard, that encouragement, I need the encouragement just as anybody. So thank you so much for that. And until next time, bye. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. It means the world to me that you're here to ride in the struggle bus with me and that you're willing to consider different perspectives, tools, and techniques that just might provide a little bit of relief and get you one step closer to the abundance that is available and waiting for us all. I hope you take a moment to grant yourself some grace where you've been denying it, some love where you didn't realize maybe it was right in front of you, and some faith where you thought all was lost. If this episode had an impact on you, would you please share a comment with a review? I'd love to hear what landed for you, and it helps us get the word out to our fellow struggle bus riders. So please review what was impactful for you. Just know these episodes are a pure labor of love in a space where I'm growing alongside you. I'm evolving every day, and I look forward to all the ways and the things and the perspectives and opinions and choices that will change over the course of time in my own life, day to day. Until next time, just know that you are loved, you are divinely cared for, and in the struggle, the journey of this life really is beautiful. I'm glad that we're in it together. Cheers.